Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. We talk with musicians about music making and the creative process. My name is Mike, and our guest this time is Blair Howerton, songwriter, guitarist, and vocalist with the band Why Bonnie. We discussed the band's excellent recent record called 90 in November. I talk with Blair about genre, about the styles of music she has written in. I find it interesting to hear Blair discuss her creative path, that where she previously may have wandered around in various styles, more recently she's tried to be more intentional about the types of songs she writes. Near the end of the conversation, the term shoegazeicana comes up. This is the word the band has adopted to describe the kind of music they've been making. I did a little research and I couldn't find the original review of their music Blair references that she thinks may have coined the term. I wanted to give some credit. But it is both an amusing and fairly accurate description of this record. For those not familiar, shoegaze was a term originally referring to some early 90s British bands known for fuzzy, layered guitars, feedback, sometimes buried vocals. These bands had guitarists who were known for standing stock still, just staring at the ground, either at their many effects pedals or maybe just chilling in concentration. So the term shoegazeicana would merge this sound, this fuzzy, layered guitar sound, with the country twang of the more recent Americana genre. And the more I think about it, I realize this merging of somewhat disparate vibes is probably what caught my ear in the first place when I heard Why Bonnie's music. So check out this record, 90 in November, and be the first on your block to throw around the hip term shoegazeicana. You're welcome. Couple of quick items. To read about other hip music stuff like shoegazeicana and other not hip music stuff, subscribe to my email newsletter called Hey, How's It Going? The newsletter. It comes out monthly, is still somehow free of charge, and it's filled with my theories and recommendations that will change your life. Hopefully for the better, hard to say for sure at this point. It's an easy sign up at tellyouwhatpodcast.com or drop me an email at tellyouwhatpodcast@gmail.com. And a quick shout out to Lauren Calfion at Votive Music for putting this interview together. Much appreciated. And now, please enjoy this Tell You What discussion with Why Bonnie's Blair Howerton.
When I try to remember it, I can't. It's slipping through my head.
Okay, Blair Howerton, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're coming to us from your home in the New York City area. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm in my bedroom in Ridgewood, Queens right now.
All right. So the Why Bonnie record, 90 in November, came out last year. You wrote these songs, I think a lot of them in the pandemic, in lockdown in New York, all by yourself to a certain extent. Now that you've gotten out there and played them live and these songs are out in the world, how does it feel to have these songs shared with the world? Does your relationship to the songs change in any way, do you think?
Yeah, it's always a bit, not unnerving, but a little anxiety-inducing to almost let go of these songs that you've held so closely to your chest for so long. And letting them out into the world and having people respond to them in their own ways. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking. You want people to have a relationship with them and to respond with their own experiences. And that's been really interesting with songs on 90 in November, because most of the songs are about my childhood and growing up in Texas and old family dynamics and past lovers. And so it was a very personal songwriting process. And to hear about other people's reaction to those songs and how they relate it to their individual experiences has been really cool and has definitely shifted the way I view the songs.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, normally you would have that experience, but it was even more exaggerated this time because the way these songs were written during that time period and what they were about.
Right.
And you weren't out there playing any of them.
Right. Yeah, we had not even played the songs together as a band until 3 days before we got into the studio. So we had 3 days of practice and then we jumped right in. And
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. We're going to get back to those songs and the album a bit later. For now, let's back up a bit, talk about your background. Can you talk about early musical memories, any influences from your early years, maybe music from your home or community that perhaps makes its way into what you're creating now?
Yeah, growing up in Texas, I obviously had a country influence. And I remember one of the first songs I ever wrote. It was a silly song. I was like 9 years old. But I remember wanting to write a song that sounded like the Dixie Chicks.
Okay.
Formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, now known as the Chicks. They were a huge influence for me as a kid. They just kind of epitomized my childhood in Texas.
Yeah.
So definitely early influence from them. Also Sheryl Crow. Growing up in the 90s, she was the queen. And my mom was a diehard Sheryl Crow fan, so.
Do you come from a musical family?
No. None of my family members play any instruments or sing, but they are music lovers. So listening to music and appreciating music was a big part of my childhood. My mom used to like quiz me on different albums and bands and stuff like that.
Like name that tune?
Yeah, definitely. Like name that tune. I think they just never really got the bug.
Yeah. But you got it somehow. Am I right that you were a theater kid, musical theater?
Yeah. So I started doing musicals when I was like 5, I'm pretty sure. I was really young.
That's pretty young. Somebody recognized that interest in you.
I think I was a pretty vocal child as far as my interests, and I really loved to sing. Like, singing has always been my favorite thing in the world. It brings me a lot of joy, and I knew that as a really young kid, and so I just gravitated towards any activity that would let me sing. So I did theater, I did choir, So I started theater when I was about 5 or 6 and did it all through high school.
Did you consider pursuing it in college?
I did, but I think I kind of fell out of love with it. As I grew up, I started to realize that it wasn't really theater itself that I loved as much as it was performing and singing. And once I started to actually write my own songs and be more serious about that, I found exactly what I had been looking for all those years, and that was to sing my own songs and to use my own voice.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned the Dixie Chicksy song when you were 9. Were you writing songs from that early age, or when did you really feel like you were becoming a songwriter?
Yeah, I wrote my first song when I was 9, and then kept doing it, and it was all very Dixie Chicks-esque.
Yeah. Now, are you playing the guitar at this point, or just writing off singing? And
from age 9 to 11, I would actually write songs without the guitar, and then my brother would write guitar to them.
Okay.
And then when I turned 12, I picked up the guitar myself and just taught myself chords from the internet.
Yeah.
And throughout high school and into college, it was more of like a therapeutic thing for me. I don't know why I didn't pursue it, maybe out of like anxiety or low self-esteem. I just didn't think that I could like drop everything and move to LA or whatever.
Right.
But I knew it was something I loved. Um,
Were you playing these songs for other people when you were in high school?
no, no, not
Like no
really.
one else, or?
I would share them with my mom has always been a big fan of mine, obviously, as moms are. So I would share them with my
Yeah.
mom. And like Kendall, my current bandmate, she's been my best friend since I was 2. We like have known each other forever. And I would share them with her, and we would even collaborate a little bit in high school too. She could play the guitar and piano, and but for the most part, it was a very intimate. Like I would sheepishly walk up to my best friend or my mom and be like, "I wrote this song," you know. It it wasn't. It just wasn't. It was like a pipe dream for me, and
Well, it was a thing unto itself, the writing of the songs,
yeah,
without thinking of playing them for someone else, right?
yeah. It's always been an outlet for me and something that I could do to feel proud of myself and to
Yeah.
feel kind of have my feelings all wrapped up into a little package.
Right. So you make your way to college, right, which is maybe where you first started thinking about performing your songs for other people.
Yeah, I went to school in Boone, North Carolina. It's a really small, like mountain town outside of Asheville.
Yeah. So that's Appalachian State.
Yeah, Appalachian State.
Yeah, I've spent some time in that area. It's lovely.
Yeah, I loved my time there
Yeah.
and made some of my best friends. Um, and it was the first like music scene I had ever been a part of. Growing up in Houston, there was no music scene for us to be a part of. There was the theater playhouse that that's like where all my creativity was kind of funneled into. So here I am in a new place with new friends, and it's a tight knit community with a lot of really cool acts coming through. Not only touring bands, but also local bands, and it was just really inspiring. And
Yeah.
I got a MacBook and decided to start recording on GarageBand and was really influenced at the time by Liz Phair and like early Liz Phair, Exile in Guyville. Dear Nora was another huge influence for me. He's an artist out of Seattle. Um, More like twee kind of indie folk stuff. And Angel Olsen, who I actually got to see perform in Boone in like a coffee shop at the time. So that was those were 3 really big influences for me in
Yeah.
college that propelled me to be like, I'm going to record my music. I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to put it on SoundCloud, and I'm going to post it on Facebook and just have people listen to it. And I did that. It was my junior year, I think. Yeah, into my junior year. And people responded to it and
Yeah.
liked it. And it was really exciting and reassuring for me. And I got together with some friends of mine who played in bands and taught them my songs. We played a couple shows. And then I graduated and was just riding this high, basically, of feeling like I had finally found what I was meant to do or what I truly wanted to do. And that's when I moved to Austin. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I already have these songs. I have like a whole album's worth of songs written. Gonna move to Austin, gonna try and find a band, and the rest is history.
Do you feel that when you've started putting the songs out there in the world, the way you thought of yourself and the way you approached your songwriting changed now that other people were hearing them?
Yeah, definitely. I think I started off just meandering. I didn't really have a genre that I wanted to dive into. I was
Yeah.
pulling from a lot of different genres, which I think is something we still do as a band and that I still do as a songwriter. And I do like that approach because it keeps things interesting. But I have since then honed in more of a cohesive sound.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was like, do I want to be a twee artist? Do I want to be grunge? Do I want to be like surf rock? Or I don't even know. I was really just pulling out strings and seeing what landed.
I'd like to follow this thread for a second if we can, because if we jump ahead to Why Bonnie, the band, and the previous music you put out, it was a bit of a different sound, right? I think I've read you describe it as dream pop, right? Mm-hmm. And now this current album is not like that. And I'd like to hear artists talk about the evolution of their sound. And you've started on it with what you've just told me in terms of the decision-making process. If you can call it that, where does this decision happen? Are the musical ideas organically leaning you in a different direction, or is there a conscious decision to write music with different vibes? I guess a parallel question might be, could you come up with a song or a musical idea and decide to take it in the dream pop space or interpret it in this newer sound? Or are the ideas themselves bringing you to that sound? That's a long question. You can take any part of it. If you're still listening, you can take it any way you want.
Yeah. I think my evolution as a songwriter has evolved in the way that I'm just more confident now than I was when I started. When I started, I would start with a melody, but not really have any idea of what I wanted the finished product to sound like or to feel like. And right. I would get lost in other people's ideas or not having the vocabulary for being in the studio and what I wanted things to sound like. And not saying that I'm not proud of the music that we've previously put out. It's just, it has gotten a lot easier to actualize what I am feeling and thinking and want a song to sound like.
From the outset.
From the outset, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think when I started writing songs, it was more of like, the song is going to go where it goes and I'm just along for the ride. Whereas now I feel like I'm driving the car.
Yeah, that's good. I think I read that the Lemonheads are an influence on some of what you do, right?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up listening to them.
Good. My kids did too. I'm showing my age here, but I'm a big fan of that band. Can you point to anything in particular that you draw from listening from them? Was it the band sound? Was it Evan Dando's writing? What do you think maybe shows up a little bit in what you're doing from that band?
Yeah, definitely both those things. The band sound being like a raw rock band with good melodies and good hooks. And that's no frills. That was really what I was looking for in this album in 90 in November. But also on the other end of that, he has a really good way of sneaking in those heartfelt, like really stripped back songs. And his songwriting is just so great. And
yeah, seems effortless sometimes.
totally effortless, and his lyricism is always ambiguous enough, but still like evocative, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm going to give you a compliment. I think you pulled that part of it off with this record. That's definitely a strength of this album.
Thank you
Just
so
the
much.
evocative imagery, but still allows the listener to take it where he wants. It's great.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your creative process more specifically. We got into it a little bit earlier, but do you have a common way the songs and these song ideas are being generated? Do you try to commit to a daily practice or anything like that?
I don't really, and I should. I know that that's
I
a
get
good
that a lot.
practice to get into. Yeah. I would say my creative process oscillates between like, I have this big feeling that I just need to blurt out into a song, and I'll feel it so intensely in my body that I have to sit down and write it out and put music to it, and it feels like I have just relieved myself of some kind of emotional burden.
Yeah.
Whether it be good or bad emotions, both. But so sometimes it's that, and then sometimes the songs are like it's more like patchwork style, where I have been working on this riff or this chord progression, but don't have a verse or a chorus. But I have some lyrics written, and I just kind of like piece those things together. And once I really start to focus more on that, then more ideas will come along. I wish I had more of a linear process, but it is pretty random.
Yeah. So some of the songs are starting with a musical idea, musical riff, and some maybe are starting with a lyrical idea.
Yeah. And sometimes I've had songs come to me of like, I think of one line of lyrics that will evoke some feeling or like a scene in my head that I want to elaborate on. And it's always fun when a song starts that way. Or if I start with the music itself, I'll, play the riff over and over and just kind of wait and meditate and see what words are coming to mind.
If you look back on the collection of songs you've written, can you put them into those categories? Oh, this one is the type of song that started with a riff or a musical idea, and this other batch started with the more literal lyrical idea?
Yeah, definitely. I can think back to every song on the album on 90 in November and remember its genesis. I mean, to piggyback on that, I think some of the more heartfelt, like slower love songs or something, those do tend to be more of the like, I am overwhelmed with this emotion that I need to get out onto the page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the patchwork way some of these are coming together. So are these songs coming over periods of time? Are you working on various pieces of different songs, or you try and focus on one thing start to finish?
No, there are usually multiples going at a time. It's chaotic, but...
And how do you decide that something is finished?
I'm one of those people who, like, I could change a song literally in the studio as we're about to record it. And I think it's just done once I can't change it anymore. And then
It's gone.
Yeah, once it's out of my hands and I can no longer change it. But there are some songs that you're just like, that come to you in a day, and they're done, and it's done, and it feels like, wow, that you can't take away or add to this. It just is what it is. And that's a really amazing feeling.
Yeah, I'll bet. All right, let's talk about some of these songs on this album, 90 in November. There are some clear themes in these songs. You hit on it earlier: memories, processing memories, home, what that means. Is it important to you that a record has these connecting threads lyrically, or do you think it just happens anyway as the songs are written during a particular period of your life?
I equally love and hate concept albums. It just
Yeah.
depends on the album. I think sometimes it can stunt the reach of the album, and then sometimes it can make it so specific that it's like, and if it's done well, it's specific enough to like really take you through that journey, through the artist's journey.
Right.
I think with the writing of 90 in November, I didn't set out to write a concept album of like, this is going to be an album about my childhood growing up in Texas and the idea of home. It turned into that.
Yeah.
And I guess I had written like 4 songs, knowing that like, hopefully this will go on the next Y Bonnie record, but I'm just writing them right now. I had all the time in the world because it was 2020, early 2020. I was stuck in my apartment. And I think Galveston was one of the first songs I wrote. And that's pretty cut and dry about like me. I was just kind of meditating on my times in Galveston, Texas, growing up and all the feelings that those memories bring up. But then once I started moving on to the next songs, I started to realize that I was kind of making this space for myself in my very closed off, claustrophobic apartment and situation that I was in at the time. I was creating this like imaginary space of being in Texas, and I'm young again and it's sunny, and with that, you know, it's not just like sunshine and rainbows all the time. I went through a lot growing up. I lost my brother to drug addiction in 2016 when I was living in Austin. And I think that was a really formative experience in my life. And it happened at a time where I was just kind of becoming an adult.
Yeah.
And here I am 5 years later, looking back on this time, not only the time of grieving him, but before that of being a kid and being a teenager. And I just kind of started going down this rabbit hole of, it was like emotional meditation. Like I was going to let myself think of all the memories, good and bad, and just kind of make this space for myself to sit in. And it was really therapeutic.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of these songs in specific. I want to start with the opening track, Sailor Mouth. In fact, I want to start with the opening sounds of the opening track. I love the feedbacky guitar that starts it up, getting our attention right out of the gate. I think it's great. Have you ever listened to the band Teenage Fan Club?
No, I haven't.
It's another one back, before your time. Your mom probably knows them. They had an album, Bandwagon-esque. It's a great record. It starts out with a very similar sound, and it really reminded me of that. It's a great album. You should check it out. But
cool. Yeah.
Let's talk about this one. I get the impression that the sequencing of the songs was done very thoughtfully on this record. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think they weren't written in succession of one another, but once they all came together, it felt pretty clear where they should go.
Yeah. So can you talk about this song Sailor Mouth with that thought in mind about its placement on the record?
So Sailor Mouth, we felt would be a really good intro to the album because it sonically encapsulates the sounds on the album. We liked the idea of having the intro being this big, bold, really dense sound with the crash and the feedback from the guitars, and kind of had this almost like whale sound going throughout. There are actually a few guitars doing feedback in that intro, just kind of buried in.
Okay.
But, and then once that kind of build up is over, it shrinks back into the like raw kind of country sound. We really liked that dichotomy and feel like that's representative of what you are going to hear on the album. So that was pretty much how the choice was made.
Talk about the song Lot's Wife. This is a real favorite for me on the record. The last section of the song is just a wonderful full band organized freak out kind of thing. It's so great.
Thank you.
I also love a good biblical metaphor. And this song comes near the end of the record, but the story you reference in the title of Lot's Wife is really fitting for these album themes of memory, looking back, the dangers of how we reminisce or live in the past. Did you have this idea of the Lot's Wife kind of allegory when you wrote the song, or how did this one come together from the beginning?
I did have the allegory in mind. I always loved the imagery of a woman turning back and turning into a pillar of salt.
Yeah.
And I think it is very, representative of how it feels to look back sometimes on your life, on those harder memories, whether it be a lost love or a mistake or any kind of regret that you carry. It feels like that. And I just thought it was such a poetic story in the Old Testament. I love a good allegorical reference. Look out.
I love the line in the song about the second coming, going the other way. That's a good one. Do you sometimes write down good lines like as notes and hope to use them in some future song, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely have an ongoing note on my phone.
Yeah. Okay. Important question. Did I read that your dad painted the cover art on this record?
Yes, he did. And I'm looking at it right now. It's hanging up in my bedroom here.
I think that's so great. Is he an artist?
He is an amateur artist.
I mean, I guess he is.
Yeah. He doesn't paint as a living, but he's painted my whole life. It's actually a hobby he picked up later in life. I guess he was like in his early 30s when he picked it up. And this particular painting he painted in 97 and has just been in the background of all of my childhood memories. So,
oh wow.
And it's always been my favorite one of his. So when thinking of album art, this just felt right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was struck by this story. We have a daughter who's in a band putting out records, and her mom has taken up painting as an adult. I'm just putting it out there that you are endorsing that it is cool to have your parents provide cover art.
It
right?
is
Can we put that
cool.
out there?
Yes. And she should absolutely do it.
Yes. Now, step 2 will be get my daughter to actually listen to my podcast, so we'll see how that goes.
Hey, she sounds like she has 2 cool parents, so...
Well, I'm in agreement with you there. All right. I want to talk about the song 90 in November, the title track. This is the one that led me to discover your music. I think it's probably true for a lot of other people. What a really well put together song, start to finish. I really get the sense of like forward movement in the arrangement and the production of this song. Starts off with that great drum shuffle, which puts me in the mind of some of the great Pavement songs, the way they kind of propel you through the song with the drums. And then the song builds, the guitar lines come in, and then that awesome, simple piano hook in there. I'm really curious about how this song came together, these different elements. Was there that sense of movement in the song when you first wrote it, or did these things come together in the studio?
Yeah, so I wrote this on guitar, just me and the acoustic guitar, and the chord progression really reminded me of a Sheryl Crow song, just that vibe and feeling and cadence. And like I had mentioned earlier, Sheryl Crow is such a nostalgic artist for me. Her music is warm and cozy, but like fun. And I wanted to write a song with all of that in it. And by this point, I had written most of the album, so I knew what the album was going to be about or what most of the themes were coming to. This was a song that was written much later in the process.
Okay.
And once I got the chord progression down and had these feelings, I really focused on having the song be about that feeling of being young and being so excited and so scared about the future, and how it just feels like that young person, like, I don't give a shit attitude, but deep down inside I'm like freaked the hell out. Which was definitely me as a teenager, so I was hearkening back to that. And then once we started adding everyone's parts, Josh's drum shuffle is just such a, like you said, driving beat to it.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a song that you want to just roll the windows down and blast in the car and just try and like have a good time while everything is burning around you, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Be young and dumb and have fun, and that's what the whole vibe of the song is about.
When I was a kid, 90 in November,
These songs, all of them, a lot of them anyway, make great use of dynamics, the loud and the quiet, tempo changes, stops and starts. Yet I felt like the record takes me on a smooth ride. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. First off, thank you. We as a band just like to highlight everybody's personal talents, and I think our rhythm section, Josh and Chance, are so locked in. They've been playing music together as the rhythm section for years, longer than Why Bonnie.
Okay.
And so any chance that we get to let them do their thing and to like take the lead on that and fill up the space with their playing, we try to take that opportunity. And then on the other hand, Kendall and Sam, Kendall being the key player, Sam being lead guitarist, they both have their unique styles. And I think in the past, we have had a harder time trying to figure out how to let both of their parts shine. And it's something we really wanted to focus on in this record, to not overdo it and to let each part sit back and then the other part will come in. And I think we really did a good job with that.
Yeah, the keys on 90 November and then that organ on Galveston, that really holds that song together so well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're proud of that one.
Yeah, I want to talk about one more song if we can. The song Apple Tree, right? The recent single release. I understand it was recorded in the same session as the record, but wasn't on the album, right? It seems to have more of that kind of country Americana flavor than the record kind of. The record kind of heads for that, but doesn't go all the way, and this maybe seems to go further in that direction. Mm-hmm. Is that maybe why you chose to release it as a single, or it's a great song? Again, we have a biblical reference here. So what can you tell us about this?
We loved this song and still love this song. I think, like you said, it's definitely pushing the Americana card. And that's not why we decided to keep it off the record. I think the final choice was that it was too similar in vibe and tempo to Silsby, I believe.
Okay.
And we wanted to let Silsby really shine on the album and let it be its own little space, hold its own space.
Yeah.
So we decided to leave it off. And once it was time to release Apple Tree as a standalone single, we felt like it had space to breathe and be its own thing, which is what the song probably always wanted.
You and me were getting a knee, making love under apple trees. Throw me into the lion's den. I'll be faithful in this life of sin.
Okay. I have one more important question for you before I can let you go, Blair. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I was looking at your Bandcamp page. I saw the term shoegazeicana. Do you have anything to say about this?
What do you have to say for yourself? We did not coin that term. We had another outlet, and I'm going to completely forget which outlet it was.
Okay.
I'll try and find it. But they coined that term, or maybe it was already coined, and then they used it for us, and it was like bells went off. I was like, that's what I was going for. Thank you. Thank you.
It's great. It's a great term.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you one more big picture question.
Yeah.
Is there, when you look back on your creative journey and look ahead, is there maybe something you are either focusing on in terms of your creative life that you're trying to get better at, that you're working on, or is there maybe something you think you've gotten better at over time?
I definitely want to get better at being a multi-instrumentalist, because right now I've definitely pigeonholed myself into vocalist, guitarist. So I want to open the door to all those different instruments, which is exciting because I have my whole life to play around with those.
Yes, you do. You could take up painting in your 30s if you wanted to.
Exactly. You can do anything you want to do.
What would be your next instrument?
Well, I feel like the most challenging one would be drums for me, just because it's so out of my wheelhouse. But I really should learn it because I'm awful, god awful at playing the drums. So I guess that's next on the list.
All right. We'll check back in on that. So you guys are going to be getting out there on the road, playing these songs, getting out to do some touring?
Yeah, we're going to be going on tour with Christian Lee Hudson and Finn Lilly in June. And that tour starts in Boston and ends in LA. So we're kind of doing the whole southern part of the country. Going to be playing a lot of 90 in November songs and possibly some brand new songs. We're back in the studio and making our next album, so might hear some new songs on the road as well.
Excellent. We all look forward to that. Thanks so much, Blair, for taking the time with us today. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.